Welcome in. It is playoff time officially. We had our first game, real game, NFL game on Thursday, but today, Sunday, is the day it really starts. We've got True Blue playoff fantasy football matchups. Clayton, good to see you.
Great to be here. Great to be a part of the playoffs. It's always a good Sunday when you wake up knowing you have a chance to win your fantasy football league. And that's what we both still have going right now. And now there's only 6 teams left. So the odds are a little bit better than they were week one.
Yep. Clayton, you'll be playing this week. We'll talk about that. I'm trying to relax a little bit with my bye week, but the Chiefs are playing, and as is for the last few weeks, they have to win, so they can't be relaxing too much. And this is also behind the curtain, the second recording of the pod today. Unfortunately, we had some more technical difficulties with some audio issues on my side, so my fault there for getting it out late. But we're gonna come back with even more energy and try to give you guys a good start to the Sunday. So we're starting with waivers here. And we do have some interesting waiver pickups this week. So Tanner and Casey were fighting over Jackson Dart with $0 bids.
Yeah. Interesting move there for Tanner. I was curious kind of what he would do at quarterback. He's been talking about how he hasn't been happy with Lamar Jackson with his quarterback play. And so I was curious, does he look at maybe, someone else? And he did this week with Jackson Dart. And I do like the move. And then Casey obviously hates his quarterback play. He looks like he's trying to add a new quarterback every week right now. So he was in there too. The other interesting one is Casey's bid for Bannon, who he is playing today. Don't think he's done too much just yet with that Eagles defense being good. Actually, he does have 3 catches for 12 yards, so not bad. But a new tight end for Casey and a new quarterback for Tanner, both starting this week for them in the playoffs.
Yeah, obviously Lamar is a tough guy to give up on come playoff time, but I think it is the right choice. Probably the process is right, at least, because Lamar's just been struggling for the last pretty large sample size few weeks here. Alrighty, so quick reminder of the playoff bracket. Me and Lucas have buys this week, and then we've got Sam versus Tanner and Casey versus Clayton to round out our first round of games. And we're going to talk about each of those matchups a bit more in depth. But for now, we're going to talk a little bit about each of the teams and where we think each of their position groups lie in terms of ranking them. So, starting with quarterbacks, Clayton, I'm going to let you take it away.
Yeah, we put myself at 1 here. Part of it is the depth, but you can't discount on what Drake May's been able to do this year. In terms of quarterback rankings, he's number 5. You look at kind of what he's been able to average per week. I mean, he's up there again, kind of at 5. He's behind Josh Allen, Stafford, Dak, and Jameis Winston. He's 0.1 points ahead of Patrick Mahomes. I think the reason here we have May just slightly ahead is because of Burrow as well. Burrow's looked great coming back. Not looking too great today, but we did kind of make this list pre 11 a.m. today.
Before the game started.
We did kind of say, I probably have 2 viable starting quarterbacks there.
Right. Yep, and then Mahomes is technically number 1 in terms of remaining quarterbacks and average points, so he's at 2 with on my squad. Clayton, you said something in the last one that you were surprised I didn't put a bid in on Jackson Dart. But the reason that I haven't, even though Mahomes has had a couple bad weeks in the last few, is because he is averaging 21.5 points and obviously has the ability to go off for 30, and has a few times it happened more so earlier in the season when they were on a decent run. But hopefully they can round back into form here. And then getting into Sam's, he's got 2 solid options in Dak and Jared Goff. Cowboys offense has been great, and the Cowboys defense has been terrible, which makes that a pretty good recipe for Dak to score a lot of points. And then Goff isn't lacking in his own weapons either. So always has a good option there, and better than what we think is going on in 4, 5, and 6.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at those quarterbacks, both of them, like you said, just plethora of options. You got Lamb and Pickens, and then you got St. Brown, Gibbs, and Laporta and Williams down there in Detroit. Just absolutely two amazing offenses that are led by two pretty solid quarterbacks. Four, we got Lucas, who has Jalen Hurts. He's pre-ranked quarterback number 6 on the season. Not playing so good. Um,
Especially
as
last
of
week.
late. He had -1 last week against the Chargers, so tough. But Lucas gets to kind of watch and see how he does against Vegas. Currently has 10 points there. And then Lucas does have Brissett. And we've talked about Brissett a little bit here and there on the show about, what he's been able to do with Tyler down. And he doesn't have a week under 20. Um, Currently has 7 right now, but dating all the way back to week 6 against the Colts, he had 22, and he doesn't have a week lower than 20 points after that. So solid option there if Hurts continues to struggle for Lucas.
Yep, and then 5 and 6, we've got Tanner and Casey. These are guys who are switching their quarterbacks coming into the playoffs. Never a place you really want to be in, especially for Tanner, who started Lamar all year, drafted him really highly, and now is starting a different guy coming into this first week. And then Casey having 3 on the team in general just tells you that he doesn't really believe in any of them. Most likely, he's starting Purdy this week in the afternoon, and yeah, we'll have to see how it goes. I don't think Baker had a particularly great game on. Well, he had a few touchdowns, maybe 2.
Yeah, Baker had 21 on Thursday. Herbert
Okay.
right now is not looking great against the Chiefs D. He only has one right around halftime here. So, you know, I guess Casey's probably glad he didn't start Herbert, but 21 out of Mayfield
I would
at a
imagine he'd
position he
take that.
hasn't been very confident in. Maybe he's second guessing that right now, but who knows? We'll see what Purdy can get done later.
Yep, I'd imagine he would take that right now if you gave him the option. Alrighty, and then going on to the running backs. This is where my team really shines with Bijan Robinson, Jonathan Taylor, and have to give a shout out to my boy Cam Scatteroo. Even though he's no longer playing, he is sitting comfortably in the IR spot, rest up. But with the combo of Robinson and Taylor, and if Kamara keeps sitting out, which is a real possibility with the Saints being eliminated and him being older, Devin Neal could factor in there a little bit as a consistent third option. But with Robinson and Taylor, we've seen these dudes go off for 30. Jonathan Taylor has hit 50 once, maybe even twice this year. So those guys can just win you a week easy. They have won me a few weeks, and that's what I've been riding into the bye week here.
Yeah, definitely the star power you have in the room is second to none. Robinson and Taylor both top 5. Jonathan Taylor, being number 1, averaging over 23 points a game is ridiculous. Be curious to see what that offense does with Old Man Rivers. But the top 2 guys there, you can't argue that you don't have the best running back room in the playoffs so far. But looking at Lucas, he does have the star power. He has some of the safe floors. Henry and Hampton and Hall are all going to get their touches, whether or not they get in the end zone. Kind of influences how their week looks. But CMC's been great all year, averaging 21 and a half points. Really helps Lucas with that number 2 spot there. And then the depth afterwards kind of keeps him above of some of the other people for sure.
Yep, and then we go back from depth into some more star power with Tanner. He's got Javante and RJ Harvey. Javante's been really, really good all year as a really late round draft pick. He was the steal of the draft, I still say. And then RJ Harvey, ever since Dobbins went down, I think Tanner picked him up maybe a week or 2 before Dobbins got hurt, but he's been the main guy and has had a couple of breakout weeks against whoever they played before the Raiders and then against the Raiders, who aren't a particularly tough test, but did still, I think, get close to 100 yards, 20 points, something like that. So had a great game, and then you factor in Gainwell as his third option to play in the flex, and he's been behind Jalen Warren all year, but has recently carved out a role for himself, catching passes and getting in the end zone, and looked pretty good.
Yeah. And then looking at 4, 5, and 6, kind of two different stories there between Sam and then Casey and I. I'm going to actually start here at 6 with Sam. Devon Achane is the star, and definitely deserving of. I mean, Devon Achane is definitely better than any running back me and Casey do have, but it's what's after Devon Achane on Sam's roster that had me and Ryan kind of struggling to put Sam any higher. I will say Tyron Tracy has 9 points and a touchdown right now, but again, we picked this list before 11 o'clock today. But then I'll get into myself versus Casey. We have Bucky versus Chase Brown. Me and Ryan both said we'd probably rather have Bucky. We had Etienne versus Judkins. We kind of both said, I think we'll take Etienne over Judkins. And then we did get down to Dowdle versus Henderson. I kind of said we'll take Henderson over Dowdle. And, I mean, he did just break a 52-yard runoff to start the day. So I'm still standing by that one. But when you look at Bucky, he did only have 7 on Thursday, which sucks for Casey. But we did kind of look at his season as a whole, and when healthy, he was just, putting up solid numbers. So we'll take him there. And then Etienne has been running back number 12 to Quentin Johnston's running back number 18. So that's why Casey kind of gets the nod over myself there.
Just barely edged you out there. All right, let's talk receivers. And this is where we're going to have a little bit more change. Fairly opposite from the running back list, starting with Casey, where the strength of his team really lies in the receivers with Chase and Adams. Jamar Chase helped him get these two guys helped him get the edge over you compared to Layman St. Brown because of their big touchdown ability, big game ability, where Jamar Chase, I know I won a Super Bowl one year because of Jamar Chase going for 200 plus yards and 2 or 3 touchdowns. And Devontae Adams has been an excellent option for the Rams in the red zone. He seems to score a 1 or 2 yard touchdown every week. So he could have 3 touchdowns and 3 catches and pretty easily wreck your day with only 7 yards.
Yeah. Looking at Casey, so Jamar Chase and Devontae Adams are 5 and 6 respectively. In terms of the pre-rank on the year, and that includes Jamar Chase even being suspended a game. So just he's got some two solid wide receivers. We said we'd probably take them slightly over Lamb and Amon-Ra. But we did think they were very close. You could make an argument either way. However, we did kind of say we would prefer Diggs over Juwan Jennings. Again, 1 and 2 here were super close. We kind of went back and forth on this, but we did kind of give Casey the nod there. Looking at 3, we kind of had Tanner. The reason he's kind of at 3 is he doesn't necessarily have that third guy that you'd be confident playing in the flex. But George Pickens has looked great. I think he's, wide receiver 3 on the year, so he's got the star power there with Pickens. And then Brown, as of late, has been unbelievable. I think he's been like a top 2 or 3 wide receiver coming down the stretch. Does not have much for him going on right now, which we'll get into, but we have Tanner for 3 because of that.
Yep, and then Lucas gets back to his assortment of receivers that he can play. Not quite as star-studded as some of the guys above him. That's why he's sitting at 4, even though his receivers have been excellent. He's got Rice, Olave, and if Evans and London were not... Evans is playing now and looked good on Thursday. London has still been out. If those guys had been consistently playing and playing the way that we expect that they probably would, I think Lucas could have a shot at getting into that top 3 somewhere. But without seeing those guys playing and playing well, it's hard to put him much higher. So he does have a lot of options. You can't play all 4 of them, so has to pick from 3 of them. And I think they're just slightly behind the other guys ahead of him.
Yeah, and then we get back into Sam's team again, led by a star there, Puka Nacua. Can't discount what he's been able to do. Wide receiver 2 on the year. He's looked great. But when you look kind of what he has after that, Pittman, who has looked good, but is now dealing with a little bit of quarterback uncertainty, kind of knocked down Sam a little bit, maybe out of the 4 spot. Probably wouldn't even get him to the 3, but maybe out of the 4 spot there. Pittman's been solid all year. And then Flowers has kind of been up and down. With Lamar, he seems to be slightly higher. So, but again, you're kind of looking, who's that number 2 guy off Sam's team behind Nacua there. So, tough to kind of put Sam any higher when Lucas has got a couple guys that, you might trust over
Right.
Pittman and Flowers right now, but he does have the star power over you with Puka Nakua.
Yeah, and I think we're all really rooting for Philip Rivers. So hopefully Pittman can excel with the more underneath stuff that he might be more comfortable throwing. And then we'll put me at 6 with receivers. It hasn't been my bright spot this year, but have turned it on a little bit lately, and there's some, a little bit more promise there. Waddle, ever since Tyreek got hurt, has been a pretty consistent receiver and getting good targets even in the end zone. Higgins had a 2 touchdown game last week, but has had 2 concussions in the last 3 games that they've had. So you got to factor in a little bit the injury risk there if he gets another one and maybe doesn't play the rest of the year. Marvin has been out with a concussion, appendicitis, and a heel, so he's definitely an injury risk. And then Brian Thomas, we have a question mark with him because I would be terrified to start him. He does have a touchdown today, but has missed quite a few games himself, and when he's been playing, hasn't been very good. So that is what brings me to the bottom. Although I am, not unconfident in my receivers. And then we will finish her off with the tight ends. And the tight ends, we ranked just based pretty quickly on their average points. So we're starting out with Lucas, who's got McBride, and this actually is a pretty big advantage. I think McBride outscores Ferguson, number 2, by at least by a couple of points. So it's not just fractions there like it is with some of the other positions, because he's been great with Brissett on the field, scoring touchdowns, letting Ryan get a ton of targets.
Yeah, McBride's putting together a great day again. He's outscoring Ferguson by about 4 points a week, which is pretty significant. But we do have Ferguson at 2. He was the next highest points per game player that we had available in our playoffs, um, tied with George Kittle actually at 10.5 points. But Ferguson's been healthier and he's been slightly more consistent throughout the whole season.
Yep. And then gave the nod to you over me, um, with Kelsey. He's been at 9.5, so he is getting outscored on an average basis by Kittle. I think him and Warren are pretty close to each other, um, but he's just slightly below you. And then surprisingly 5 and 6. Well, Casey and Sam are down here again, but 5 and 6. Fannin is actually outscoring Hunter Henry, who I thought was having a pretty solid year and has had a pretty solid year. Um, but Fannin, maybe with a little bit of an upgraded quarterback, at least recently with Shadur. I haven't watched much of that game going on right now, so I don't know what's happening. But Fannin has been getting a few extra points there.
Yeah, definitely was surprising to me too. I thought it definitely was going to be Sam at 5 with him starting Hunter Henry all year. And, as a Patriots fan, I feel like I've seen him in the end zone a decent amount. But Fannin actually does have some more yards and some more receptions than Hunter
Yep.
Henry. So Casey does kind of get the slight nod over Sam there.
Perfect. All right, we're gonna get into some actual matchups here now and talk about who's playing who this week, and we're starting with Sam and Tanner. Clayton, you picked Tanner, so I'll let you start.
Yeah, when I look at Tanner's team outside of quarterback, I really like his players more in terms of the group at running back. I like Javonte Williams and RJ Harvey as a group more than Achan and Tracy. I do think Achan's the best running back in this matchup, but I don't think Javonte Williams is a dud, and RJ Harvey with no J.K. Dobbins has proven that he could put some points up. Um, as he's kind of the leader of that backfield now. Getting into the wide receivers, again, I do like Puka more than I like Pickens or Brown, but when you factor in the group collectively, I'll take Pickens and AJ Brown over Nakua and Flowers. I will say AJ Brown only has 1 point and they're winning 17-0, so I don't know how many more points he's going to get. I need, in terms of my pick to be right, I need AJ Brown to kind of do something here down the stretch. And then we already kind of highlighted tight ends, but Jake Ferguson's been averaging more than Hunter Henry, so I'll take Jake over Hunter. The flex is definitely interesting, especially this week with Philip Rivers coming back. I think if we did have a healthy Daniel Jones, I would maybe give the nod to Michael Pittman. But with Philip Rivers back, I might have to give it to Kenneth Gainwell. He's looked kind of good in that RB2 spot. Pittsburgh's kind of been able to feature him in a way that has made him successful, and he's carved out a pretty good role for himself. So I do like Gainwell over Pittman this week. Throughout the whole year, again, I probably would give the nod to Pittman, but it's tough to trust a 44-year-old quarterback who hasn't played in the NFL in a handful of years. And I will say, might be a smart move on Rivers to come back. He's got a whole roster of children, and I think his health care was getting ready to expire with the NFL, and him getting to start this week kind of resets the clock there. So could be, saving him thousands of dollars is what Twitter
It's
was
a
estimating there.
smart
Getting
move.
into the defenses, I think this week in particular is an interesting matchup because Denver does have Green Bay, and Jordan Love has proven he can throw the ball into the end zone at a decent rate. And then kicker's kicker, but I think when you look at the groups, running back and wide receiver, tight end and flex, I'll take Tanner's roster over Sam's this week.
Yeah, and I picked Sam based solely on the merit of his team, as I've done all year in these games involving Tanner. Um, but I decided to go mostly with the star power over the collectives here. I think HN being healthy, which is awesome. You never want to see a guy like that miss a game in the playoffs. I think he'll have a big game against Pittsburgh. They'll have to put up some points to beat them, and he's really the sole driver of that Miami offense. And then with Puka getting to play Detroit, that should be a high-scoring game, I'd imagine, coming up here in the afternoon. And then that's going to have to go through Puka. He's going to get at least 10 targets probably. And I will say, we've got a little bit of extra info here about this game now at this point because it is 12:45 Mountain Time. And Tanner's got to be kicking himself for picking to start Jackson Dart over Lamar right now. I think Dart's got 4, Lamar's got 15 and a couple of touchdowns. I would have probably done the same thing, but I would have done it scared that this exact thing was going to happen. So that one has to hurt. That one has to hurt.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. I think I probably would have started Jackson Dart, but yeah, Lamar's got 15 right now, and Dart's got 3. I think he just threw an interception, a little bit ago. So tough look there, but for keeping the integrity of our show, we did pick these games before 11 a.m.
Yep.
So I was not going to change my pick, even though we do have a little bit more insight now, and it looks like Sam it is the favorite. Um, and I mean, as we've seen with you picking the star power, we have seen stars win games, especially playoff games, especially week 1 playoff games. I do remember a time when Le'Veon Bell wrecked someone's week. I think you kind of mentioned it earlier. Jamar Chase has won you a Super Bowl. I think the year that happened, I think he had a crazy playoff week 1 week. I think Saquon destroyed someone's fantasy hopes with a crazy week 1 week, and
Probably
so
last year. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, going with the stars is never a bad option come week 1 of the playoffs.
And Tanner does still have his, so he's got Pickens, who could have a massive game. That's probably what he'll have to be hoping and praying for come tonight against Minnesota. Alrighty, and then our other matchup involves Clayton and Casey. Clayton, you're in this, so I'm gonna let you start.
Yeah, so again, pick this matchup before the 11 a.m. games have started, and I felt real confident going in. I think Bucky getting 7 helped, but I just look at my group as a whole, and I like Drake May a lot more than I like Brock Purdy. Just as a fan, and as a fantasy football player, I think Drake May just gives you so much more, and he's proven that already today. With Bucky only having 7, I kind of thought Chase Brown could match that or do better. I was slightly worried. Judkins, that offense is kind of hit or miss right now, and he's struggled so far, but I didn't think he was going to have 0 through the first half. Um, and then my wide receivers, I know we had Casey slightly ahead, but Devontae Adams is dealing with a hamstring thing. And I just think CeeDee Lamb and Amon-Ra is another week healthier. I think he'll have a great week. I'll take Kittle over Fannin any day. And as I already mentioned, I'll take Travion Henderson over Rico Dow right now. And that is proving to be a true statement as Henderson had a 52-yard house call in the second quarter and is currently rocking me 17 points. And an important note, I do say kickers are just kickers, but I did pick a kicker this week that is playing inside. And as we get later in the year, the weather tends to become a factor. I know in that New England game, there's a little bit of snow, a little bit of wind, it's cold. Bengals game cold again.
Yep.
I will say I don't know what the weather's going to be like in Seattle for Jason Myers, but for my boy Mevis, thick Mevis,
Oh,
he will
he's ready
be
for
in a
the.
nice controlled dome environment.
He'd be ready for the cold though with that thick skin on him though, if he did need it.
Yeah, he's got some body weight that would help keep him warm.
I'll make the case for Casey, although I did pick you. Brock Purdy versus Tennessee. I could see, he's got a ton of options there and not a very strong Tennessee defense. The Niners have looked great all year. If Christian McCaffrey scores for some receiving touchdowns instead of rushing touchdowns, which you never know which one he's going to get on the week, you could get Brock up to a good game, but you'd have to be nervous about him with the injuries and the way he's played. And then Jamar looks like he's getting close to 100 yards right now. So if he gets, one big one, gets over 100, gets a touchdown, that could swing this pretty easily. And then, like I mentioned in the receivers, talking about Devontae Adams, he could easily go for 3 touchdowns, and I wouldn't be surprised even with the hamstring injury. And then finally, Dowdle against New Orleans. Maybe one of his big games early in the year was against New Orleans as well. I don't remember, but that defense isn't anything special, and we've seen when Rico really gets going, he can rack up 200 yards and a touchdown or two, and make a huge difference. So that's the case for Casey. I don't necessarily think it's going to happen. That's why I picked you, but I don't see no path forward for him. There is looks like you're projected to win by about 20 right now. So having a pretty good week, overcoming that 5 point home field advantage that Casey managed to lock up.
Yeah, I'm feeling pretty good. I mean, as we're filming this after the first half of the 11 o'clock games, Drake Mays already ran into, and Henderson with the 50-yard house call is huge. Would like to see Judkins and Brown pick it up a little, but that Eagles defense is currently pitching a shutout. So feeling very confident about myself going into the second half and afternoon games and the rest of the week.
I think you probably should. And with that, I think we'll recap our picks here. I've got you and Sam. You've got Tanner and yourself. And yeah, it looks like you can make up one game this week. I don't know based on the info that we've got if that's going to happen. And then I think if I win that one, the best it might be game over if I win this one.
Yeah, it's still close enough where we're still picking, and I think we'll continue to pick even afterwards, just
Yep.
to give the viewers something to think about. But I am starting to look forward to Idaho in the fall. I do believe, and coming out there, meeting Millie, and hanging out in Idaho for a Sunday football and a fun weekend.
It'll be beautiful. She's taking a nap right here, being a good girl while we record this podcast for a second time. Alrighty, and with that, we will go ahead and wrap up here for the second time.
One more thing. I asked this in the first one. I gotta ask it again. What team do you want to see most next week, and what team do you not want to see most? We'll get rid of Lucas, and you can kind of get rid of me if you want because just basically we reseed our bracket, so I'm
Right.
gonna be playing. If I win, I have to play Lucas.
Yeah, so since you're the 6th seed, you'd have to play him being the 1 seed. Um, so out of you, Tanner, Sam, Tanner, and Casey that are left as my options. I do and don't want to see Tanner because I think he does have the best overall team out of them. That's the reason I wouldn't want to see him. But it would be awesome to have a third match with him this season. We started the year off. I got a win over him in week 1 while we were all at your bachelor party. It would be great to wrap up his season and call it good after in the playoffs next week if I could end that too.
Yeah, and as you say, that Tyron Tracy just gets his second touchdown. So Tanner's team is slowly
May not
looking
get there.
like they might not get there. But yeah, I think I think that would be great for the league. I know I just saw the touchdown, so I'm thinking less will happen. But yeah, the storyline there would have been incredible. Would have been hilarious in the group chat. Would have been a great great thing for the pod too. I think we would have done some exciting stuff there, but
Yeah. I'll
um,
gladly beat Sam
Tanner's
too,
going to
though.
need his Denver Broncos and the Dallas Cowboys to get it done somehow without Dak doing too good too. So
Yeah.
Sam does kind of have a little safety blanket there that if Pickens and Ferg does good, Dak is probably doing good as well. So
Probably on the back of Dak Prescott. That is
makes it
true.
tougher.
That is true. I didn't think about that. Yeah, really, he needs something out of Javonte. Then it looks like to really cement get a bunch of catches out of Pickens and Ferguson for some PPR, and then let Javonte score all the touchdowns. Alrighty, well with that, I think we will actually wrap it up. We've got audio this time. Hopefully it stays. Good luck, everyone. We're always, as always, hoping and praying for no injuries and looking forward to the semis, which we will start to go over on Tuesday. Oh, it'll be out on Wednesday.
Yep, love it. Got some good finishes here. We got Buffalo in the red zone. They're down 10, but could easily make that a one-score game here soon. Um, Baltimore game's a two-score game, but division game like that could probably get a little bit closer. And the fireworks later, we got the Rams and Detroit. Hopefully that will bring some fun plays and some good football to watch. The Chiefs game, I believe, is a 3-point game right now
Close
too.
right now.
So some
Yep.
good football on right now that I'm excited to get back to, and I'm excited to hopefully give Casey a loss. Feeling pretty good about myself. Love Casey. I think he's a great guy, but there's nothing more I want right now than to send him home and send him packing on this fantasy football season.
Looks like you got a good shot at it. So people are gonna be going home sad this weekend. No other way around it. Alrighty, well let's wrap it up. Clayton, good to see you. Good luck in the
Good to
rest of
see
the
you too,
games.
Ryan.
Talk to you later.
Yeah.